Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I will be showing you a guide about Armored Sauron, who is exclusively playable in Season 4 in Lord of the Rings Rise to War. Let's get going. So just as always, let's first look at this commander, and there is his little intro. Kinda nice with the eye and the mace, just like in Lord of the Rings as we remember it. So Sauron, with his armor, is a balanced commander, which means once he reaches level 20, he will get some bonus attributes to his might, focus, speed plus 25. Then he also gets 2 additional skill points. If we now look at his attributes, we can clearly see that his strongest attribute by far is might stat, followed by his focus stat, and this we will need a lot because many of his skills scale, focus. Then his last trait, his last attribute is his speed stat, which is falling kind of low compared to these two, but this is still more than the normal commanders have. Like overall, he has brokenly, insanely strong attributes. And there is a reason why Armored Sauron is insanely broken. He is kinda intended to be that way since Season 4 is kinda strange. You are playing the events from Lord of the Rings like in the movie. Like you have to escort Frodo to Mount Doom where he tries to destroy the ring. The evil forces need to stop Frodo from getting there, while good side needs to ensure Frodo is protected. And in my experience, evil side has kinda not enough players. There just never is enough, which is why bots come in and try to help, but bots are just insanely stupid. You can't count on their help. And then you're fighting against good side, and good side has a ton of players. It feels like one evil side player has to defeat at least 5 good side players in order to even out the fight. So it is kind of quality fighting quantity. Evil side has Armored Sauron. Each player unlocks him at some point, and then you need to defeat as many enemy commanders as you can with this. And good side is on the quantity side. They have tons of players. So, quality versus quantity. How can you win this? How can you build your Sauron? Now, I will be showing you a build, and that build works for multiple units in Sauron's army, as well as a single stack for the Retaliate build. Now let's look at Sauron's skills and see why he is so imbalanced. So this will be your end build. And now let me give you an overall explanation. So Lord of the Rings, these are your strong CC abilities. You are dealing a bit of damage with this too every 3 rounds, but above all, it is giving stun against all enemy units. Strong CC, that's so nice to have. Then you have Focus Breath. This again deals some kind of damage every 3 rounds again. This scaling with focus, but what we are aiming is Madness. So you have strong CC again. Whenever your stun is being resisted, you still have your Madness as a fallback plan, and vice versa. On top of that, you have Black Arts. So this is scaling with focus too, but that's not what we are aiming for. We want this effect. You're nullifying HP recovery for 1 round. Amazing. It counts every 3 rounds, and this is nice to have because burst healing kinda tends to happen on round 3. I'm looking at you, AON, with your burst healing, just as an example. But also you are shutting down Gandalf the Grey's healing as well too, or even Galadriel. Moving along with his Respect 3 title, Dark Lord. Overall, very nice title here. It is giving a debuff on the enemy units, and then they get 30% more damage from your units. Insanely strong. On top of that, we have Soul Siphon. Now this, every 3 rounds, is dealing some focus damage against the enemy units, which means it is ignoring armor, which is nice. It is scaling with focus, even nicer to have. Then you also heal 2 allied units. This is self-sustain and is scaling with focus. Like, how crazy is that? Imbalance. This is just imbalance. Then we have Wild Magic. This is activated every 4 rounds. I don't think this is that great. It could be insanely great if this would activate every 3 rounds, but instead it activates every 4 rounds, which means you will have this proc 2 times in a battle. This will deal some big chunk of focus damage against one enemy target, but also allow one of your allied units to deal additional focus damage to what they already deal. And this scales with focus too. Wow. Continuing on with the Respect 5 title, Leadless Eye. Damage increase of 40% to Orcs, Urukais and Trolls, which is nice. We are going to have Orcs and Urukais anyway in our team composition. If you are running the multiple units team composition in your army, you will have Orcs and Urukais. If you are running the single stack, the Retaliate build, you will have only Urukais in your team comp. In addition, this is also giving you maximum HP when you have maxed this out. Then we have Magical Barrier, which is increasing your defensive stats, plus it is scaling with your focus stat. This is insane! And why do I say that? Because your defensive stat is mitigating physical damage. Good side is kinda heavy in dealing physical damage. They don't have much else, like they don't have burn damage in their armies. They sometimes have focus damage if they have the Keeper Mercenary camp, and also if they have Oathbreakers. That's when they deal elemental damage. But that happens very rarely, which is why this is giving you such a big return of investment. Your units will get bulky with this. On top of that, they will get even more bulky with Morgul Commander. Orcs and Urukais get minus 14% less damage. So damage mitigation. These two talents here are going to make your army bulky, and even your weakest units are becoming bulky units. Now let's establish what Sauron's strength is. So looking at this Respect 0 title, we can see his first strength is strong CC, stun, as well as madness. His second strength obviously is that he is canceling healing. Amazing. Every 3 rounds. His third strength would be, generally speaking, he is boosting the damage of his troops. How does he do that? With a Respect 3 title, Dark Lord is throwing a debuff that is increasing the damage you will deal in the end. On top of that, Leadless Eye is further increasing the damage you deal. So, third strength is obviously boosting the damage your troops are dealing. His fourth strength is obviously his self-sustain because he has Soul Siphon, and to kind of round this up, he has his bulky army. And there you go. This is Sauron's strength. What is his weakness? Well, his weakness is, after PvPing a lot, it has come to my attention that the commanders who are dealing high commander damage kinda okay-ish against Armored Sauron. Not that they are beating them, but they're dealing more damage than troop boosting commanders. But as well as elemental damage, that is also a weakness of Armored Sauron. If you can bring Oathbreakers against them or Keepers, that would be a good start. And his third weakness would be, if you're running the multiple army composition, that you are kinda open to madness, that's a given. And his last weakness obviously is debuffing mechanics, because Dark Lord, his Respect 3 title, is a debuff on the enemy units. This can be cleansed, and then you're losing a lot of damage, 30%. That's not to underestimate. These are Armored Sauron's strengths as well as weaknesses. Now here we are at the itemization part, and I do like this part a lot, because whenever I list these items here and explain you what I was thinking when I chose these items, you guys have so nice ideas and share them with me in the comment section, which I kinda encourage you to continue to do, because I still improve my gameplay. Guys, if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comment section below. But first, let me tell you what I was thinking when I listed these items here. Remember, we have different builds we are going to run. The build stays the same, but one item will change how we fight completely, which is the Retaliate build. What do I mean? If we equip this weapon with this flavor, Retaliate, we do have another approach, and I will go back and forth with you when I explain these items. But first, let's not start with the Retaliate part. Let's start with if you have multiple units within your army composition. So that's Sauron. If you have that Sauron, you do have two choices. The first one being the Cutlass with melee might. This is the aggressive version if you want to deal lots of damage. But then you also have the Battle Axe being your defensive / versatile version. So if you have concussion, you will mitigate damage by a certain percentage. If you max it out, it will be minus 36%. Now this is versatile because it is very strong against armies that consist of one stack of one unit type. Because you mitigate all of their damage. Compare this to an enemy army who is running multiple unit types. If you mitigate one of those units, it's like, not that much compared to the army that is running just one single unit type. So please keep that in mind when you are running your Armored Sauron. And it has come to my attention that commanders that are dealing high commander damage tend to run single unit types or two unit types in their army composition. So I think Battle Axe with Concussion is stronger against commanders who are dealing high commander damage because of their specific army composition. And by the way, I am running Battle Axe with Concussion too. Moving along with the armor, I have decided to go with Scale Mail because Scale Mail is nice for the two builds, the one being the multiple unit types, as well as for the Retaliate build. Let me explain why. If you are going with the multiple unit types, you would like to have melee vigor because this is mitigating the damage for all of your unit types. But if you are intending to run with a single stack of units, like with your Retaliate build, then Guard would be your go-to. You are increasing for one allied unit their defenses for 30% every 2 rounds for 1 round. I think the scale armor is just nice to have because now you are versatile enough to switch back between the Retaliate build as well as the multiple units to boosting build. This is making your Sauron more versatile and I like that idea. And on top of that, it is giving you the best stats he can have, like might, focus, and defensive stats for your melees. That's all we need. In regards to your headpiece, now I have decided that we can go with 2 helmets. The first one being the Bone Mask, and I think this is the best option for his multiple units build. It has the stats we need, might, focus, as well as army HP. Now, if you run him with Manipulate, remember this is kind of the same logic like here in Concussion. This is nice against single unit stacks, but you also have the option of running Hysteria. Hysteria is kind of a wild card because, first of all, it is affecting one unit type of Madness, but on top of that, the Madness needs to kick in. And it is kind of 50 to 50% chance for that to happen. And even then, I don't think that is that great. I would prefer Manipulate. It is keeping you versatile. So this is for the multiple unit army composition. But if you want to run Retaliate, I would run the full helmet because this has Inspire. Kind of similar to Guard. Every 2 rounds, one allied unit gets a certain percentage damage increase, like if you max it out by 30% for 1 round. Imagine if you're running the Retaliate build, you have the Scale Mail with Guard. Every 2 rounds, the units get more bulky as well as deal more damage. Keep in mind that the Retaliate build can get shut down with damage mitigation like Concussion or Manipulate, and then it is going to get shut down hard. Here is a bonus info. Concussion's damage mitigation as well as Manipulate's mitigation can stack together. That's a lot of damage that's going to get mitigated, and I think this is Retaliate's weak point. Moving along with our accessory, I don't think we have any other choice. It is Drums of Moria. You now get to choose between Haste of Soldiers. If you are lazy like me, I always like to have more increased army speed. Or if you want to deal pure damage, Bane of Dwarves, always nice to have since you're fighting good side anyway. It is very likely that they are going to throw dwarves against you. Now here we are at the golden equipment, and I think Reckoning is your best choice here. Be it for the multiple unit build. For that very purpose, you would be running Might of Soldiers, or if you want to run Retaliate, since this weapon in itself is enabling Retaliate. It carries that very name. Without this, you can't use the Retaliate build. So, coming back to the purple weapons, with these 2 weapons, you can't run Retaliate. You need this weapon, these items like Guard and Full Hand with Inspire. to get maximum value out of Retaliate. Now, if you don't have Reckoning and you still want to get some use for your multiple unit build, then maybe you can use Axe of Khazad-dûm with Panic or even the special effect Cleave. But I still consider Reckoning the best choice. Like, this is your BIS item here, your best in slot item. If you don't have Axe of Khazad-dûm, you can still make do with Morgul Blade. This is all the important stats like Might, Focus, decent amount, as well as plus attack for Orcs and Uruk-hai. This is what we're looking for. And it still has some aggressive special effect. I'm looking at Blight here. It gives you a chance of dealing additional poison damage, which is scaling with your focus, and you have a ton of focus. I still think that this is not that great because High Alert can reduce that damage. High Alert can't reduce Reckoning's damage. So here you go. This is why I consider Reckoning your #1 choice. Looking at his golden armor pieces, in my opinion, Warborn Battleplate is his best in slot option for his multiple army boosting builds, because here you have lots of might, high defenses, as well as Fortitude of Soldiers, mitigating the damage your melee units receive. But if you are running the Retaliate build, I would recommend you to run the Berserker's Raiment, because this has even more might, which means more damage, and it is giving your Uruk-hais lots of HP. Top of that, they also get damage mitigation with Fortitude of Uruk-hai, so it is kind of similar to Fortitude of Soldier. Looking at his helmets, there are two choices for us. For the multiple units in your army build, I would recommend you go with Cask of Submerged Isle, because if you have more than a single stat of units in your army comp, you are kind of weak against Madness, because they now get to hit each other. We don't want that to happen, so you have to be immune against that with Aegis. And also you are kind of open to stun, which is why you need this immunity here. In case you want to run the Retaliate build, here you go with the Berserker's Gaze. This helmet has lots of might, it has lots of plus attack for your Uruk-hais, and you get to choose between two special effects. Now, I would choose Curse if I'm fighting a lot against Convener characters, because this, as it states, against all enemies, damage dealt minus a certain percentage. If you max it out, minus 36%. This is exceptionally good against Convener characters. Gandalf the Grey. We know there are a lot of Gandalf the Grey players, and this would be your counter against that. I would be running Curse if I have this item, but if you were unlucky, if you don't have this special effect, you can also make do with Fortitude of Uruk-hai. And then, last but not least, we have to look at our accessory, and as you see, there's just one #1 choice, which is the Palantir of Orthanc. If you are PvPing, you want to have Tactical Mark. Good side has lots of elves, and Gil-galad, for example, is allowing his elven units to dodge by, I think, 70% or so, and this will counter that. For PvP, I think Tactical Mark is mandatory. Now, here we are at the army composition part, and I would like to show you how I would build my army in regards to these two builds. The first one being the multiple units in my army composition. I would be running something like this, like always have some raiders in my team comp just to counter these mounted units. They are already bulky, but with Sauron's respect 5 skills, they will get even more bulky. Then you will also have some berserkers, always nice to have. They too will get increased defensive stats. They are Uruk-hai. Uruk-hais and orcs are what we want in our team composition. They will get all the buffs from this Sauron's build. You now have to take care of Madness, which you can with the Horseman's Helmet and its Madness immunity. Or, if you are lucky and you got a Cask of the Submerged Isle with Aegis, just equip that. And as your last unit type, you ideally want your T4 troop, but try to include Orcs or Uruk-hais. Now, me being a Gundabad player, I will of course run with my Warlords, and they synergize with Armored Sauron a lot. They are orcs, they get all the defensive stats from Armored Sauron, like his Respect 5 skills. They get the plus defenses, they get the damage mitigation from his Respect 5 skills, and that's what they need. They are always a nice counter as long as good side is including ranged units as well as melee units, because then Shove gets activated to attack both melees and ranged at the same time. and you also ignore 50% of the target's defenses. These guys are just too good. You should always aim to have these in your team composition. Me being a Gundabad player, I'm happy with this. And then you can adapt to whatever your enemy is bringing against you. Like you can then just scale here, but that's not really needed. With Armored Sauron, you can just do this, and then you're good to go. Like seriously, you are good to go as it is. If you want to perfect this, feel free to play with these options here, but in my opinion, this is already enough. Now let's look at his Retaliate build. You want to have just one unit type in your team composition, that one stack. And I would recommend you going with your Berserkers. I have shown you the items for it. Why do I choose Berserkers? They are by nature already immune to stun. That's so nice to have. In addition to that, having a single stack in your army composition is making you kinda immune to madness, because you can't hit another army. There isn't any other army here. This is making you kinda resistant to madness. The only thing that can happen to you is when your commander himself falls victim to madness and is wailing against your army. That could happen if the enemy has Isildur, because Isildur has the skill where he's making the enemy commander as well as the army go mad. But this build isn't really a high commander damage build. You don't have to be scared of Sauron killing your troops here. So this is okay for the Retaliate build. And there you go, guys. This is the multiple army stack build as well as the Retaliate build. Both builds rely on the same skills. They work exactly the same. The only thing that changes are the items. You need the Retaliate special effect on your weapon or else can't have it. And here we are at the report part. Let me share you some PvP reports with you. So at the beginning of this video, I already said to you that Armored Sauron is kind of broken. That is intended by the developers. And here you will see some evidence. So my fully stacked army here against Gandalf the Grey is completely getting a victory. And playing Sauron, you will rarely get a draw in a fight. If your army is replenished and the army of the enemy too, you will most likely end up winning the battle anyway. Let me continue by showing you what this Gandalf has. So, kinda okay-ish equipped, not the best, but still okay. And he still can't do anything against Armored Sauron. After this fight, we took another fight immediately, and we didn't get the chance to replenish our army here, as you see. Another army fought against us, and they still got completely wiped out. Let's look at this item. So, nice gear. Not the best again. Still okay-ish. And still, he's getting wiped from the table. And then, immediately after that fight, we still couldn't replenish our army. Another army hit us. This time it is a Dwalin. Let's look at his items. This guy has even better items than the guy before. For sure. Dwalin is among the best commanders in this game. And even though we are weakened, we still get a victory out of this. And then the next report, alright, we got to replenish our army. We wiped out the whole year. This guy even has his Respect 10 item. Decent items overall. And we smashed this guy. Then we had another fight. And here again we could replenish our army. Look at this draw, man. I mean, this is... Actually, you can consider this a victory. It was very close. But I think you get the gist of it. Like, Armored Sauron is very strong. And this Theoden has best in slot gear. You could argue that he can just further increase the strength of Herigrim, his Respect 10 item, and refine it also. But still, that's not going to change the fact that you are going to do this to him. And then, once more, we are fighting a Gandalf the Grey. It is a victory after victory after victory. Now, if you want to defeat a Sauron player, you should send at least 3 armies at once, and they should hit in a short interval so Sauron doesn't get to replenish his armies. So this is my advice for every good side player. Get rid of Sauron by sending at least 3 armies who hit him at once. That's the only way to make him retreat. And that's among the few weaknesses he has. He is kinda low in stamina. His stamina regeneration is very slow. If you send him back, he won't come back any soon. That's it. That's an additional weakness of Sauron. Now here is bonus information in regards to your Armored Sauron. If you want to get the most value out of his damage, and you are getting attacked in your settlement, I would suggest you put your Sauron into your settlement, unequip every army you have here, and just focus on your Sauron. Let the enemy armies come and have your barracks ready for your Armored Sauron. Replenish the army of your Sauron with this button whenever you get hit. Sit in your settlement and watch how you're melting one army after another. This is the most value you can get out of your Armored Sauron. So this is my experience in Season 4 with Armored Sauron, and I hope that with this video I could help a lot of evil side players. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. I see you guys next time.